Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm John. I'm alcoholic. I said I wasn't going to cry, but I just want to thank everybody for being here. The most important thing that could ever be said in Alcoholics Anonymous, all the reading the literature and saying your prayers and investigating different things. Please remember this. Don't ever leave AA. Don't ever leave here. Every single thing I have in my life is because of Alcoholics Anonymous' 12 steps and the intervention of God's grace and the human touch of the alcoholic. People that reached out to me. I want to thank the committee and Alan and all the people from Jones Beach meeting for asking me to be here and for the wonderful thing that they did here. You know, took out time in their lives and came here and put all this stuff up and got this thing rolling in the Jones Beach from, Easter time until October. And Ronnie and Pat had a pretty good idea, to start this thing. Why don't we start a little meeting? I was one of the 5,000 people that came to the van on the first meeting. Because since they started that meeting, there's been at least 5,000 that came there. Oh, I was in the van the first meeting. Oh, yeah, I was in the van the first meeting. Oh, so it was about 5,000 that went into the van. But it was guys like Ronnie, there was names mentioned. I want to thank my friend Paul for starting us off. I know Paul intimately. And because of Alcoholics Anonymous, and both of us staying here, that we've run into people that went to Mass. And I started going to Mass many, many years ago. I'm a daily communicant. And we had the opportunity this morning. We met early this morning and we received communion together, before we came here. And the deal is that this, for me, this is all about a cultivation of a faith. And I had no idea what you were talking about. You mentioned some names like Ronnie and Bill Fallon and the Conley brother, the Conleys and different people that have touched my life over the years. Joe Shapiro, different guys that saved me, that showed me I didn't have to drink no more. When I came here this time, I know about AA since 1968. I was 17 years old. It was noticeable that I couldn't drink correctly. My father noticed that early on. Matter of fact, when Paul was talking, I was just thinking of the different things. Me and Timmy were walking home from school. My father was an insurance salesman in the area. And he pulled up, and it's about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon after school. We just had a couple beers. We had 3 quarts of Colt 45 each. And we were coming down the street. I was like 16, 17, maybe younger. My father pulled up. He was very happy to see us. Come on, get in the car. Mommy's making chicken. Come on, get in the car. I'll bring Timmy home. Come on. And I said, I'm going to walk. We're going to walk home. And he said, what? I said, we're going to just be here. We're going to walk. He said, have you been drinking? I had one beer. Get in the car. I don't remember the chicken dinner that night. I know that because of alcoholism that Timmy died, years later. He was a chronic alcoholic and he didn't stay in AA. He died in a hospital from AIDS, alone in a room. Because nobody wanted to talk to him no more. My life went on from that point. I was brought at 17 years old over to the St. Ignatius Retreat House. There happened to be a Matt Talbot retreat going on. And there was an alcoholic priest. He took me out to dinner. He told me what could happen to me if I happened to be alcoholic. I knew at that time, at 17 years old, that I was alcoholic. I didn't understand the ramifications. I didn't understand really that it was a disease of my body, my mind, and my spirit, and that I couldn't stop drinking. And at 17 years old, you can't really hear too much of that stuff. And I continued on, and I had many, many stories, many, many things happen to me. I've had many really good opportunities in life. I got scholarships from high school. I never told nobody about it. I never followed any of them through. And I continued to drink, And it got worse and worse. I come from a very nice family. My father and mother were very good people. I'm a good guy. I take a drink and something happens. I found out that I got a compulsion and obsession, and I can't stop drinking. I didn't want to drink the way I drank. I didn't want to wet my pants in your house. I didn't want to go through the windshield. I didn't want to smash my face on the dashboard. He was talking something about the ring, about boxing. I'm a boxer. I have a couple of drinks. I go into the ring. I go into the all-black gym. And I want to fight the biggest guy in there. I'm in the ring. I'm got my hands. I'm screaming. I'm drunk. I'm in an all-black gym. And I'm in the ring. Screaming that I want to fight. And I was asked to leave. About 15 years later, I was in a meeting and a fellow was sitting next to me. And he just looked at me and he said, "You're that Caucasian guy in the ring." And then his face changed. And he said, "I don't know why they didn't put you in the dumpster." Serious, why didn't they really do something to me? Usually I don't finish the story, but that story, after I went in the boxing gym, I went home. I think I lived in Queens, but I went to my parents' house because that's where I would end up a lot. And I walked in and I thought it was 3 in the morning, but it was 7:30 in the evening. My father was selling insurance at the kitchen table. And here comes his 21, 22-year-old son, Bowery drunk. Comes into the house and it's hot in the house, and I walk, smash right into the refrigerator. And I fall down on the ground. My father's selling insurance 5 feet away at the kitchen table. I don't remember really anything else. But that kind of stuff would happen to me quite frequently. When I was growing up, I come out of Hollis, Queens Village. We moved to Glen Head in 1961. I remember as a kid, I was, a good kid. I always had that little hole in my stomach. I wasn't sure what it was. Playing the handball and stickball and all of that stuff, nicey nice. 8 and 9 years old. Trying Camel cigarettes with the older guys that were a little older than me. I don't know if you remember the first time you ever hit a Camel cigarette, but at 8 years old, it's It's actually a pain in the ass. But everybody else is doing it, you know. Then I would go to school sometimes down on Jamaica Avenue, the city bus. I would get on the back and I would sketch by myself on the back with the snow. And I'd go to school that way. You know, because I always needed a little rush. You know, and I didn't say too much. Then the next day maybe I would be crying because I didn't want to go to school and leave my mother. You know, 8 and 9 years old, but I'd be smoking Camels and sketching on the bus. You know, always wanted that little bit of a rush. Didn't pick up a drink yet. We moved to Glen Head. Father bought a nice house. By the time I was 9, there were 6 brothers and sisters. My mother said that was a good feeling. You know, that's why she would have had 13, she said. But she had a hysterectomy at 40. You don't get that joke? But anyway, my mother was shot out of a rocket. And my parents tried everything they could. You know, I left my house at 18. I always had a good job, always had money, but I never had money. My story also has pot and narcotics in it. And I've done things and seen things that you're not supposed to do and see. And that thing that, what's his name? Paul. Paul said about, we would not regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. You know, that when I came to AA this time, I was depleted as a human being. I didn't understand really what was happening to me. I came to AA before this time. You were all very, very nice to me. Told me all this stuff. You handed me the book. Read the book. Even know what the hell book you were talking about. You told me if my ass fell off, to put it in a brown paper bag and bring it to a meeting. What kind of thing is that to say? I would go to my car, I would walk to my car and like put my ass in a bag. John, come here. And I would walk over and he would, you know, somebody would say to me, wear life like a loose garment. I would go to the car again and like look in the mirror like, what the hell happened to me? You know, I met Liz Bailey when I was in the detox. I went to a meeting and there Liz Bailey was speaking at this hospital, the detox. And she told me to turn my scars into stars. I'm attached to a wheelchair. I have an Irish cap on and dark sunglasses. Turn your scars into stars. I would wheel back to the room just like, what happened? You know, when they were talking about it, it's not, I was thinking, I got teary-eyed a little bit when Paul was talking, like thinking that we're actually here. You know, we're all here, we're all sober, we're all clean. You know, whatever table this is, watch these guys here. They're all nicely clean, they all took showers this morning, they all got underpants on. But watch this table, because I know them intimately. And the good thing about it is I'm attached to the bed and in the detox. And they tell me that I'd never be alone again. And I would just say, yeah, okay, thank you. I haven't been alone since I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous. Wherever I go, I run into people. Wherever I go, I could be in Peru. I was in Italy a number of years ago. We were traveling for many hours, and we finally get to Lake Como. Going into the hotel, and we were traveling with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and my other sister-in-law. I said, I got to go take a walk, please. So I took a little walk for an hour. And on the way back, I went into all these old churches, and I'd never been to Italy. It was outrageous. Lake Como is beautiful. And when I was walking back, I was almost out to the hotel, and a woman comes out of nowhere and says, please help me. I'm an alcoholic drug addict. Can you please help me? And I said, me too. And she said, you too? And I said, yeah, I'm an alcoholic drug addict too. And she said, do you go to AA? And I said, yes, I do go to AA. And we talked a little while, and when I went into the room, my wife said, where were you? Where were you? I said, I just ran into an alcoholic. She asked me if I was a member of AA. And I said, yes, I am. I ran into more people. I went to meetings there a few times, and wherever we were, 200 miles away, I'd run into the guy coming out of the bathroom. Hey, John, how you doing? My brother-in-law was like, what the heck? Who is that? I would go to, in Assisi, to St. Francis, the big church, a chapel, and I would go down and say a little prayer in front of St. Francis, little gravesite they have inside the church. And on the way out, I seen this guy from the New York City Fire Department. He had the big jacket on. It was a little after 9/11, several years after. And I said, hey, how you doing? You're from New York? He says, yeah. We talked for about an hour about God. Didn't mention alcoholism or anything like that. Just mentioned that the reason that we're here is because of God's grace. I ran into him 3 times. Different towns, different places. My wife, my sister-in-laws, both of them said, here comes Rob. Here's Rob. 3 separate times. My alcoholism continued to get worse from the age of 17. And I couldn't stop. I moved around a lot. I always had a job. But I was always... we built the Glen Oaks Country Club. There's 25 guys of my caliber. Everybody driving backhoes and stuff. Going to lunch and getting, don't forget to get the, you know what to get, right? I would go for the break and pick up everything. Cases of beer and stuff, and the foreman was just a guy from the VFW. He was just like this. Because we did a good job. We all worked good, but we were all wild. Everybody drinking, everybody, little pot. Couple Percodans, It got worse. A day at a time, it continued to get worse. I tried many, many ways to stop, and I never really thought, I was called alcoholic wherever I went. Nicely a lot of times in the beginning. Drinks a little too much. Anything could happen. I could end up anywhere. I come out of a complete blackout one time, and I'm not sure exactly where. I heard my name and slapping on my back and stuff, and I, finally see where I am, and I'm with the Hells Angels. With 5 Hells Angels sitting around a table at about 10 after 9 on a Saturday morning in McSorley's. 7th Street between 2nd and 3rd. I live in Seacliff. I don't know exactly how I got to the city. I would end up in the city a lot. I like action, you know. A guy pulled a gun on me one time, and I took it away from him and said he shouldn't do that. You know, and when I think back on it, and I sit here and I'm clean, and I just left my wife. We've had a heck of a time. My father-in-law was just buried on Friday. He had a stroke 8 years ago, and we were there the whole time, and we were taking care of him. And last couple of years have been very hectic. Found out I had skin cancer. I got that taken off the other day. I'm completely clean. I woke up last week with arthritis that I didn't know I had, and I couldn't walk. I was walking on a walker. I didn't once really think of, leaving here or drinking or taking anything. Because I'm free today. I have you guys. You said something about the phone. I use the phone. My phone continually goes because I ain't alone no more. My alcoholism continued to progress. A lot of times I'd wake up, I wouldn't know where I was. I prided myself on that I worked. I showed up at work every day. I went to work one day and was getting near the end. I didn't know it was going to be the end, but I was drinking pretty much around the clock. I was using the other stuff a lot too. And I figured that I'm pretty sure I worked at this place. And I was pretty sure it started at 8 o'clock. It was about 2 minutes after 8, and I went in, and he just looked at me like, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little late, They said, you're on vacation. So I'm good with the mouth, I'm fast and everything, and I said, well, I left my car in the parking lot. I went on a date with Mary. Mary lives down the block, and we went to the movies, and then we went bowling. We had a really good time. What a wonderful time we had. And their expressions didn't change or anything. They just looked at me and said, you don't have a car. I sold my car for $40 two weekends before because I needed a drink. Because when I woke up and I looked out the window, I saw the tow truck coming. I had no money and I needed a drink. So I ran out and I stopped Ray's towing and asked the guy, did he want my car? Give me $200. He said, I'll give you $50. I said, give me $40. Because by that time I was very, very sharp. All I could think about was to get that liquor. It was no joke. It was no socialization. It was no, 1 day at a time. I'm going to have a little couple of beers with the guys. It's 24 hours a day. And I couldn't stop. When I come to AA, the first time that I came to meetings and stuff, I was probably 23. I went there under duress. I flipped a car, or somebody chased me with a machete, or, something nice. So I would go there, and all you people surrounded me. Told me what I told you before about the book and the sayings and all that. But I knew that there was a lot of love in here. These guys told me they come out of the Bowery. They told me they were in prison. The women told me different things, same type of thing. And I would leave those meetings and I would feel pretty good. But I wasn't sure of the whole thing. And I'd always go back to drinking again. And I couldn't stop drinking. And it continually got worse. My inside started to fall apart. And by the time I got here this time, my soul was broken. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And all the parties and all the things that we think of and all the happy times and all the, fun, we thought it was fun. I had fun one afternoon. I was down at a party down at Tappan Beach. They were building the marina there. There was only one boat there at the time because they were just building this whole complex. And it was a 36-foot police boat. And I thought it was a very good idea, me and a friend of mine, Joe, to unhook it and push it out into the harbor. So we did. Unhooked it. You didn't even think about it. Drinking, got 15 kegs, and everybody's drunk. And a little LSD to pepper it up a little, So I get the boat, go push the boat out. Me and Joe. All of a sudden, there's two policemen there wondering what we're pushing the boat out. The boat's 40 feet out. Go get it. I'm a good swimmer. So I dive in and get the boat. It was like diving into Jell-O. Because of the other stuff that I took. And I went in and I put the rope around me. 40-foot boat. They thanked me. We didn't get arrested. I just had this thought. Joe was sober for 27 years and he stopped going to meetings. He blew his head off. I have many, many friends that came to AA, tried it, thought it was wonderful. Sooner or later, life takes over and they stop going. Jumped in front of trains, shot themselves, overdosed, all kinds of stuff. I've stayed in Alcoholics Anonymous because I don't want to ever forget where I come from. Where I see a new fella, a new gal come in, and I always go over and shake their hand. I don't go into a big dissertation of the fourth step or any of that. I just shake their hand and welcome aboard. Please stay here, man. When I was in that hospital, when I arrived in the hospital, I had to go to a detox because it all caught up to me. I couldn't stop drinking. And when I woke up that morning, I was at my parents' house. I didn't know how I got in there. There were Vikings in the room swinging swords at me, screaming my name in Arabic. I didn't know what I was going to do. They were big. They were like Steve here, standing over me. Had big leather bands across them, long hair, big hands, steel swords coming at the bed, screaming my name. What the heck am I going to do now? Something happened that day. I didn't drink that day. Next day I went down to the detox. That day I went down to the detox. I called my friend Jerry. His wife worked in the hospital. They brought me down to the detox. I couldn't even hold a cigarette in my hand. I couldn't hold a cup of water in my hand or anything. I was shaking uncontrollably. I knew I was going to burst. They told me to go home. They couldn't keep me that day. And I went into the detox on February 14th. Love Day. Valentine's Day. There was no love in my life then. There was nothing. I was alone. I felt alone. I felt broken. I got tied to the bed because I was coming apart. They whacked me with the Valium, and I never say this part of the thing, but in no uncertain terms, I told the doctor to give me the spike and let me do it myself. I need 20 milligrams. I don't need 2. saying it viciously. Not being vicious, but just saying it because I needed it. I needed to stop this. And you people from Alcoholics Anonymous came into my room and told me that I didn't have to drink no more. That if I continue to go to AA, I kept saying, I go back to AA, I go back to AA. He said, if you go back to AA and you live these 12 steps, you're going to be okay. And when I left that hospital, I didn't go to a detox because I was a rehab. Because I was a little silly. I was starting to turn wet. I was 25 years old. Alcohol almost killed me, drinking liquor. The disease of alcoholism, the I, self, and me part, will kill me today if I don't continue to live these steps and continue to ask God on a daily basis to stay in Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't get on my knees because I got arthritis and it flared up. I couldn't walk last week. I was on a walker. That pissed me off. I just turned 70 and I never felt better in my life. And then the leg goes a little bit, the neck, all this stuff. My father-in-law dies. I'm like, what the hell? But I really didn't think that way because I know that life goes on. I know that I don't have to drink no more. You know, when I left, I'm in the hospital, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And when I left, I didn't go. I told you that I didn't go to the rehab. I went home and I got my mother's car and I went up to a place in Seacliff that works, you know, the residential treatment place for kids that have mental illness. Very serious mental illness, schizophrenic children, all kinds of, you know, very sick. And I pulled up there because I worked there before, a couple years before on a volunteer basis. And one of the nuns in there came up to visit me in the hospital. She knew I was, you know, she found out I was alcoholic and all that. And she said, you're a good man, why don't you come up and help us up there? So that's what I did. I went right up there. There was a couple women out on the field playing with these kids. And I believe that it was my second spiritual experience. My first spiritual experience was in the Glen Cove detox when I was shuffling down the hallway. And I thought to myself, maybe I can do this. Maybe I'll go back to that AA. Maybe I'll get one of them books. Maybe I'll get that thing they call sponsor. Maybe. And I went up to this, I got let out, I got the car, I went up to the place. And I saw this woman out in the field and I walked directly over to her. It was my second spiritual experience. Never knew anything like this. And I walked up all the way up like this, up to this woman. I had a lot of hair at that time and I had a beard down to here. I was about 230 pounds and I looked like I just came out of the woods. I had the same clothes on that I went into the detox in. So I look really sharp. And I went up and I said to the woman, hi, I'm John Kelly. I'm a chronic alcoholic drug addict. I just got out of a detox. What is your husband and children thinking you working full time? She basically did what you just did. She just looked at me and said, oh, I'm not married. I said, oh, would you like to go to Chinatown with me on a date? I was like this. Irish cap, dark sunglasses, dirty clothes, and a shit-eating smile on my face. Scared to death. And these words come out of my mouth. And I started hanging around with her. Started hanging around with her friends that I call the Sound of Music people. Because on Wednesday they would be ecstatic that Friday's coming up and maybe we'll go bowling. Or maybe we'll go to the movies. And they'd all go, yeah. I'd be looking in their pocketbook. But I didn't take anything. Because they told me that I had to be honest. Rigorously honest with myself. And I knew that if I took their pocketbook or I took their wallet, that I'd have to live with that. And that sooner or later, maybe I'd drink again. And that's the bottom line of my life, that I don't want to drink again. And I started hanging around with them and going to all these places. And we got married. We had 2 beautiful children. I had a union job for a long time. I live in a beautiful community for a long, long time now. We just celebrated our 43rd anniversary together. She's been with me the whole time of my sobriety. And everything I have in my life is because of Alcoholics Anonymous' 12 steps. Because I had to change. I have to change my guts. I didn't know what I was going to do when I came here. You know, I didn't know anything about no moral inventories. But I knew that when I was shuffling down that hallway, that I said, please help me, man. That was my first prayer. Please help me, man. I said it this morning again. And I asked God again this morning to help me not to be self-absorbed and to be a little helpful. To be helpful to somebody. You know, and on my 97th day of my sobriety, my sponsor said, you know that detox meeting that we've been going to every Wednesday? I want you to take that meeting. I want you to go up there and get the book from the nurse and go into the detox and tell them about Alcoholics Anonymous. Tell them about yourself. Tell them what alcohol did to you. And on my 97th day when I left there, well, it was a little thing before that. Before that evening, I was sitting with my sister. She went into the drugstore. And I sat across the street in my car. And right directly across from me was the gin mill that I used to drink in every once in a while, a Knotty Pine in Glen Head. And a friend of mine, Billy, come out of there and he saw me sitting there. He was 6'6". He looked like a Hell's Angel type of fella. And he came over to the car and he said to me, please tell me the truth, John. Are you really not drinking? I said, no. I don't drink one day at a time. I go to the meetings. I read the big book. One, you live and let live. Easy does it. Go to meetings one day at a time. Put your ass in a bag. Bring it to the meeting. So Billy said, could he come? Could I come to the meeting with you? And I said, yeah, you could. And we both went up there, Mutt and Jeff. Billy called me the other day, just celebrated 44 years sobriety. I don't have to drink no more. I don't have to take nothing no more. I come here and I rub elbows with you guys, wherever I go. I do a lot of things that make me feel good. Make society a little better. Because I live today, because of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I live an encouraging, kind life. I'm not always up to par, as Paul pointed out a little bit. I've driven down my street in a residential block in Seacliff at 60 miles an hour because I was angry. Thank God nobody stepped out. I've jumped out of cars. I've threatened people's lives. In sobriety, living the 12 steps. And my wife at one point, I was sober 10 years. I was thinking when he was talking, I was sober 10 years. We're having another child. My wife is like 10 and a half months pregnant. She's in the car, and the guy cuts me off. I cut him off. It was my fault. But it was like, accidental. And he didn't particularly like that, and he said some choice things to me. And at that point, I didn't particularly care for that. So I jumped out of the car and threatened his mother. And nobody got off the construction site. There was about 12 guys. They were all like this. Because I changed. That button is pushed and something happens. What they say in AA, you become restless, irritable, and discontent. And all I heard was Joan saying, "Asshole, come back here." "Shh, asshole." And we don't talk like that to each other. And I, bye-bye. I waved to the guy. Took off. I got back in the car and I'm shaking. My hands are shaking. And I said, "Well, how much money are we taking out?" She says, "What is wrong with you?" I remember when I first got out of detox, we were dating. We were starting to date and hold hands. And we were walking through Roosevelt Field. And a guy comes up and says, "Hey, John, how you doing?" And it was a guy I used to drink with in the bar and everything. I grew up with the guy, and it just freaked me out. He just said hello to me, and I said, "Mike, this is Joan. Joan, this is Mike." And I ran. And I ran out of Roosevelt Field. Full blast run. All the way to almost Old Country Road. And she's running behind me saying, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" I just asked her to marry me like 2 weeks before. And she caught up to me and she says, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Unknown alcoholic fears, unknown alcoholic fears." I didn't know what the hell was happening. I knew it that day too, as I know now. Don't drink. My friend recently, a couple years ago, drank after 35 years. One of the best men in my life, one of my closest confidants, one of my dearest friends. Shy away from this thing and anything could happen. I could tell you 50 stories like that, 100. And here I am, I wake up this morning, we just got back from the funeral yesterday, come back to the house in Seacliff that I've been living in for 38 years. There were guys in this room that helped me with that house when I first bought it. Helped me to this day do different things around. Come to my house, laugh and joke. There's also guys that came to the house that aren't here no more, that I haven't forgotten for 1 minute. Because you forget, if I forget where I come from, because look at me. I'm pretty today. I have underpants on. I have a little thing in my pocket. People told me this morning I look beautiful. Frankie from Long Beach told me, "You look beautiful. I love you." Look at him laughing back there. I was in a meeting in Kentucky. And after I spoke, the guy came up to me, had like an orange jacket on and green lime pants and like a big ascot sticking out. He had big glasses on, and he said, "Thank you. From where we come from to where we are today is totally impossible. But with the 12 steps and God on our back, we're going to be okay one day at a time." And he walked away. The next day at breakfast, you know how you meet all the people and you're all friendly. And I said to Steve, I remember the guy's name. Steve is like my best friend now. I said, "Steve, who is that guy?" He says, you don't know him?" He says, "That's Tommy B." He says, "He's got the worst alcohol story you ever heard in your life." I said, how long is he sober? He said, 52 years. That's how I know that this works. That a day at a time we don't have to drink. It's not the time factor that I got such and such time or this guy got such and such time. It's today. To do the best we can with today. And some days, it might be a little off. But if we don't drink. What we've been through the last 2 years, my wife and myself and my father-in-law and all of my sister-in-laws and all of that. My father-in-law was one of the best men I ever met in my life. He was playing golf, it's 36 degrees out. He was the only guy on the golf course, cigar in his mouth, playing nice, come home, have a little martini with his wife. No compulsion or obsession, just a wonderful guy. And the next day, boom, massive stroke, 8 years. In the past 2 years, we were able to be there a lot. And other things were happening in my life. We don't have to run. I don't have to run no more. I got people like you. Got this table here that I said to watch this table. All these guys are intimate friends of mine. I don't have to go nowhere. I know a vast majority of you people from going to AA. Not from going to church. I do go to church. I do believe. I was going to a party. I was sober about 6 weeks. Somebody was inviting me to a party. And I was petrified that they were going to grab me and put stuff in my mouth and put the funnel, put the keg in my mouth and everything. And I stopped at the church after work. And there's Father Fee walking back and forth, like this. Rosary beads around his neck saying them. And I said, the door was locked. And I said, the door is locked. I'd like to go in and talk to him. Can you open the door? He said, excuse me? I said, I'd like to go in there and talk to him. Because I was, sharp. And he said, what's your name, son? And I said, John Kelly. And he said, oh, you're Muriel's son. I've been praying for you for 12 years. And he let me in there and I started going into church. And I go into churches and I sit when nobody's in there and give thanks. I do the same thing in my car. I do the same thing in my living room. I did the same thing sitting right there when Paul was speaking. Because this whole thing has to do with the cultivation of a faith. The first 3 steps. People say, the 8th step and you make amends and all that. There's 7 steps before that. That if we do that, we're going to be okay. When I walked down into Norway Hall, my 2nd or 3rd meeting, I was petrified. And old Pat Mullen came up to me and shook my hand. He asked me my name. And I said, John. And he said, I've met you before, Johnny. I said, yeah, I've been here a couple times. And he said, Johnny, do the best you can with what you got for the day. And ask the good Lord for a hand. And he squeezed my shoulder and he said, you're going to be okay. And sometimes when I say that little statement, I cry my eyes out because he was right. And he also whispered in my ear that day, that he was there since 1949 and this works. Please stay here. And that's why I say that. I was sitting in a little chapel one time. I visited somebody in a hospital. I went down to this chapel, and I was the only person there. And all of a sudden, I got this overwhelming feeling. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. Don't ever leave here. Meaning AA. Don't ever leave. That's why I say that, because I believe that it was told to me, that we can't leave here. Look, I don't know how many people are here, 800, 1,000 people or something. Like, what the heck? And everybody's clean and everybody's nice. And, hey, how you doing? I know people that would be outside stealing your car. They're sitting right here. You don't have to do that no more. When I went back in where the guy pulled a pistol on me, happened to be in a Super 7. And I was the only one in there. He didn't like my approach or whatever it was, and he pulled the gun, and I took it away. And about 8 years later, I didn't go in the store for probably 6 years. And we were coming home from a wedding. I was very nicely dressed. I had a nice pink jacket on and a black golf shirt and no socks. Italian loafers. And I said, I got to get a pack of Camel. It's about 12 o'clock, coming from a wedding. So I pull in, and my wife says to me, you going in there? I said, what the hell? It's been 6, 8 years. What the hell? So I just walk in. There was a big line, and the little guy's still there. As soon as I put my foot in the door, he asked me in no uncertain terms what I was doing there. And I said, I'm here to get a pack of Camel. And he took the pack of Camel and he threw them at me. And I grabbed them, put them in my pocket. He says, get out. This is 6 years later. And when I went back to the car, I said to my wife, I must have made an impression on him. You know, but thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous, where I have to make amends. I made amends. I make a living amends every day. You know, that if I don't drink, I'm a better person. You know, in these steps, we can talk all eloquently about the steps and all of that stuff. But we have to live this. I have to live this every day. Cutting me off? Sometimes the time goes so fast, all of a sudden it's 2 hours later. I said, stop. But I'm actually ecstatic that I don't drink. You know, and that I have the life that I have today. That when my father years ago told me he was kneeling in his closet upstairs in his bedroom, and he was trying to get my mother out of the closet because my mother was having a nervous breakdown. He told me it was because of you, because of the way that you act. And I tried to get my mother out of there. My mother had a nervous breakdown because of me, because of the way that I acted, the way that I was drinking. And I wasn't a bad guy, but you know, a 20-year-old kid, a 25-year-old guy come into your house drunk is a pain in the neck. And I caused a lot of problems with the family. I was able to be with my parents and be with many, many people that were sick, terminally sick and died. I was able to be with them, you know, because of Alcoholics Anonymous 12 steps. That I've changed enough that I can be encouraging. I can be kind. I can be loving, you know. And that wasn't the case when I was drinking. I wanted to be those things, and I was those things at times, but I couldn't stop drinking. And when I found out that I had the disease of alcoholism, and that it affected everything that I did, then I really had to take a look. My sponsor's sober 52 years, 51 years, whatever it is. He's had many, many things happen to him. We talked last night, and he said, thank God for AA, we're happy, joyous, and free. You know, he's got a lot going on, I got a lot going on, and a lot of people here got a lot going on. We don't have to drink no more because we stay together. We have to stay together. We're not here to gossip about each other and say this and say that. We're here to just be with each other. To be able to shake somebody's hand and say, this works, man, stay here. You know, there's guys over at tables that I can see right now that came to my house many, many years ago, and they're all sober, you know. There's a little guy sitting over there that stood up for 49 years, and he went like this. You had to stand on the table because you couldn't see him. I could remember when he said to me, I can tell you exactly where he was standing and exactly where I was standing outside of Norway Hall when he told me to keep it simple, stupid. I said, I don't particularly care for that stupid business. And we've traveled around for many years and went all over the place. We started going up to Bill Wilson's house in 1989. You know, I went with my sponsor to the Founders Day, which was one of the greatest things I ever did. I knelt outside of that house and looked up and it said, "Welcome home." Both of us were sitting there holding each other's hand, crying. And we were both sober many, many years. Because this thing doesn't get stale, you know, if you continue at it. And you stay here, you know. And I was going to say that Irish prayer that this other guy said. But it's an absolute joy to be able to stand here. I don't feel nervous. I don't feel jumpy. I don't feel that I'm lying or that I'm conning you or going to look into pocketbooks or coats. Not going to do none of that. We're going to give thanks for everybody here. I'm going to go about my business and go home and do what we have to do. And I thank God that I have a place to go to. I could call any one of you and talk to you, you know. And that is a gift. Because there's a lot of... There was a guy at work that used to... Years ago, I just got sober a couple years, and this guy was just a macho type of guy and wore cigarettes in his shirt up here. Slick, got the grease in his hair and everything. And he'd say all this nonsense. And he never smiled. So one morning I just went up and I grabbed the back of his neck and I planted a kiss on his mouth. And I said, "The next time you see me coming, you better smile because my tongue is going to go in your mouth the next time." And about 25 years passed by. I was taking a walk down at Tappan Beach. And I seen him standing in the pool, like saying like this. 25 years later. So I walked up to him. I had a Hawaiian shirt on and pink baggy shorts. And I walked up and I said his name. And he looked at me and said, "Yeah, who wants to know?" I said, "Me, I want to know." He said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Get ready, buddy." I said, "John Kelly." And he just went like this, like he looked and he said, "I thought you were dead. What are you doing around here?" I said, "I live up the block." He says, "You live in Seacliff?" I said, "Yes. I have 2 beautiful kids and a beautiful wife." And he just looked and I went like this, like to go near him. Because he remembered that kiss. And I walked away. And I thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous every day. You know, I'm going to leave you with this. My daughter graduated from Scranton University. And we went up there, it was 12 years ago. And we went up there, and of course I was nicely dressed. I had that pink jacket on again. I had the nice golf shirt. My oldest daughter sitting next to me, my wife, my in-laws, my sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws. And I start to cry. Not like, I'm talking like, and Kaylin's sitting next to me and she says to me, "What's wrong with you?" "Mommy, look at the cracker. He's crying. What? Tell me exactly how you're feeling at this present moment." And I looked at her and I said, "I could have been shot in the head and left in an alleyway. And here I am." And with that exact time, the Jesuit priest said, "Elizabeth Grace Kelly, magna cum laude." And I said, you know, I just looked up and my tears cleared up and Joan grabbed my hand. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. That it's given me a life that I never knew possible. I never knew that I could stand here. There was no possible way that I could stand here. And today, I'm asked to do stuff like this. I got a pastel tie on. I was going to wear pink shorts. Pink socks. But I said, I'm not going to go overboard. And then I seen my friend over there with that crazy suit. Yeah, sitting over there. I said, holy mackerel, if he wore that suit, I should have put the pink socks on. What the hell? So thank God we can sit here comfortably and we can smile a little bit and we can realize that we know that we have to stay here. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and God bless you all.